Oh man, I don't even know where to begin. I just feel surprisingly emotional at this moment. I don't usually, I'm a Minnesotan, we don't do this. Holy smokes, I'll say, I won't swear. I'm so impacted by Hannah's very sweet note. I wish she could be here. She's such a lovely person. And we're all affected by each other, aren't we? What's going on in our world with people, with animals and plants and the oceans and everything. We're going through this time, I call it a hurricane, my last book, that is very destructive. We have hurricanes in America, and they wipe out everything in its path. But in the eye of that hurricane, at the center of it, gives it all its power, all of its energy. It's absolutely still. Sid called that mind. We all have at our center this quiet serenity, inner peace, mental health, resilience, whatever the heck you want to call it, in any language you are all speaking, whatever you're speaking. And as a psychologist, I was only taught about the hurricane, how to diagnose the hurricane, how to label the hurricane, how to get paid with the DSM-3 code so you could label people. And that's all I learned, was just how to diagnose. Pretty much it. To analyze, to label. But Sid, you know, by the time I was only like 33 years old when I met Sid. And boy, did life have to create a trap for Joe Bailey to hear Sid Banks, because I was really in my head. I had trained with Virginia Satir and Milton Erickson and all these incredible people in family therapy, and I thought I was an expert in that area, but I was so stressed. I was so burned out. I was so overwhelmed on the inside. On the outside, everyone thought I was really cool. I knew how to do that. But I knew I didn't have mental health. I didn't even think it was possible. I just thought I was broken. That's what I was taught. And so Keith Blevins, my best friend from graduate school, we went to graduate school in Lubbock, Texas, of all places. I don't know how I ended up there. But Keith was a very dear friend, and he moved on and ended up working with George Pransky and John Enright in California. And he kept telling me about this guy, Sidney Banks, and he'd send me little cassette tapes that were very poorly made, in my opinion. Like, can't they get a better company to work with them, for God's sakes? And I would just toss them in the wastebasket. I wouldn't even listen to them because I was so cynical. I was so closed because I thought I had the best from the best of the best, and I was doing my best to just do that. And quit annoying me with these trips from California. And but he persisted. He never gave up. But then he found the ultimate bait for Joe Bailey: a woman. He was such a little trickster. I think it was a grander trickster that was at work there. And so he called me one day and he said, and I just fallen in love again for, I don't know, the umpteenth time. And he said, Joe, there's this, Sid, that guy I've been sending you those tapes, I'm sure you've been listening to them. Oh yeah, sure. And he says, he's going to give a talk at the University of Miami Medical School. You know, he's legit. He's legit now. He's going to speak at the medical school. I thought, oh, that's interesting. And it's going to be in November, and you live in blustery Minnesota where it's really cold, and Miami is really nice and hot in November. Why don't you come down? And by the way, there's this wonderful friend of ours, Michael is her name, and she's single. And you're going to love her. She is just the most dynamic, and she's an artist, she's a poet, she's just, I think you'd really, yeah, well, it's kind of like, yeah, and something was like a magnet just pulled me. Literally, it felt like a magnetic pull. I'm not using that as a metaphor. It just felt something in me. And I didn't know if it was her or if it was, I was ready to hear Sid, but it was my moment. You know, and I knew enough to listen to that. I knew enough. And to tell you the truth, I couldn't really stop it. It was overly compelling. I had to do it. So I said, yeah, I'll go. And so I went down and arrived before Sid and before Michael, and I was just there in Coral Gables at, I think it was Rick Suarez's house, and staying there. And well, why don't you come to the airport with us to pick up Michael? I said, okay, yeah, that sounds, I'm all in on that. But when I saw her, it was, wow, it was just like slap up the side of your head, fall in love at first sight. I was just like smitten with Michael. And I'm like, God, what is going on here? It's just like something is, you know, when you're getting moved into a whole new reality, it was just like this, it was very magical. Falling in love, and then I'm going to meet this Sid Banks, and I wonder what that's going to be like. Oh, I don't care, I've already got the prize. You know, that was what I was, you know, consciously looking for. Unconsciously, I was drawn to this incredible force of truth. Because we all are. Everyone in here, every human being is born with this almost like a magnetic attraction to truth. And you can hear it in music, and you can hear it in stories, and you can hear it in movies, and you can, whenever you hear it, it touches you and awakens that in you. But I hadn't met Sid Banks yet. So we had this wonderful lasagna dinner, and Sid was there, and Michael was there, and I'm just totally smitten again with Michael. And we're all sitting around, and I'm Mr. Therapist, right? Oh, hi, what child in the family are you? I was a family therapist. I was just so into my thing, you know, and I was engaging, and I was trying to talk to Michael, well, how did you grow up, and blah, blah, blah. It was like an intake interview. That's what she thought. Who is this weirdo? You know, what is he doing? And she was like, oh my God. I thought he was just a really cool guy. And I don't know what she was actually thinking, but she was pretty amused by me, I'll tell you that. And so then all of a sudden, Sid started to talk, and everybody in the room just went dead silent. I thought, this is really weird. What the? And I just kept talking. And people kept looking at me, and pretty soon, okay, I got the message, and so I just shut up. And then Sid, if he had a cannon, he turned it towards me, a cannon of truth, and just hosed me for the next hour. And I just sat there, and I was just like, how do I get out of here? Is there an escape hatch? I could push a button, and I would suddenly disappear out of the room, and they wouldn't even notice. Because everything he was saying was like this, you could see all the castle of concepts and techniques and theories that I had created so carefully for a decade. He would set a bomb here, and that would explode, and set a bomb here, and then pretty soon my whole thought system about being a psychologist, about being a human being, utterly disintegrated in front of my eyes. And so I was so threatened, because that was my identity. I'd finally worked so hard to become an expert in family therapy, and I was sought after, and I was doing talks and working with all these incredible people, and my ego was so big, it could fill this room, it was ridiculous. And he had just destroyed it in a matter of moments. And the other part of me knew I was home. I felt what I felt like when I was a happy little boy. And I don't usually do this. This is really... I knew this was going to be something, but I didn't know this was going to happen. Wow. I'll pull it together here for a second. No, don't do that, Joe. You're fine. I just heard you shut up, just talk. Everything he said was just so true. Someone said that was a good title for a book. It's just so true. And when you hear truth, you just know it because it's who you are. It's who you are is truth, is mind. Mind isn't out there. Mind is in here. It's in each of us, in every living thing. One of my best friends is a world-renowned environmentalist and explorer. He's gone to the Arctic and the South Pole. He's an international leader in climate change. And he is an absolute student of Sid. And he and I were interviewed by Amy Chen Mills, who had a radio podcast about how the principles could help people on the front lines of environmentalism not get burned out, so they could stay in the fight to save our planet. And Willie's an amazing guy. He's just a little guy. He's 78. He just got back from his 800-mile solo skiing, kayaking vacation in the Arctic, the North Pole. During breakup, he's going down in his inflatable kayak, waterfalls and crevassing, and he's just this little skinny guy who still holds the Minnesota record for the number of consecutive sit-ups at 4,000. His name is Will, and he was well named. But and he just spoke at The Hague to the international conference. He was the keynote for that, and he talked about thriving in the eye of the hurricane, about how climate was affecting the whole planet, but we have to have our sanity. We have to have our wisdom. We have to have a clearest thinking, because it is real. And but he said nature knows how to be resilient. When he was in the Arctic in April, he said it's all melting. The permafrost is melting. He says, I was walking across it. Usually it's all ice and snow. It's now land. And he says it was full of insects, thousands and millions of insects in the Arctic in April. This is like nutso, right? And he said, and then I saw a robin. A robin is a bird only in the southern part of America, or the continent. And they were all over the Arctic. Robins eating these insects. Because their instinct, they didn't hear it on their email. They didn't hear it on the internet. They heard it on the internet. Their instinct. So birds, animals, all of nature is this wisdom. But we as human beings, because we've got this big brain, we've developed the capacity to not listen to our inner wisdom, to override it with our belief systems and our fears and our hatreds and our judgments and who's good and who's bad and all of that. But buried in our hearts is the truth. And whenever we there's the truth. Now that baby blew my mind the other day. That's Maria. Hi, Maria. She was at my coaching course, and she introduced me to that baby. So if you ever wonder what mental health is, come here, little baby. What's your baby's name again, Maria? Amaga. That kid, when you just have to see this child, if you have any doubt about what mental health is, go look in her eyes. She'll look right through you to your soul. I've never seen a child quite like that, that looks so evolved. It's such a young, it's just pure. But every baby comes in pure. We just get contaminated innocently by our parents, by our circumstances, by all of this. So Sid, he has the inoculation. He had the antidote to our contaminated thought systems. And he was, I'll never forget when I met him, I thought, here's this guy, he's a 9th grade educated welder, and he's speaking the purest truth of anyone I've ever heard. And I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot of psychologists, non-psychologists, gurus, you name it. And Sid was so simple. His message was so simple, but it was scientific. It wasn't just spiritual, it was scientific. Sid uncovered psychology's principles: mind, thought, and consciousness. Those were the building blocks of every human experience, regardless of culture, regardless of trauma, regardless of family of origin, regardless of any of that. We are all operating from that. And when a science finds its common denominator, its principles, it's now a science. So Sid didn't just bring a spiritual awakening to the planet. He brought a scientific revolution to the planet. So I met Sid that day, and I didn't know what the hell hit me. I was falling in love, I didn't care. And I came back to Minnesota to my very successful private practice. It was waiting lists, you know. Marilyn, my partner, and I were very sought after as speakers. We did all kinds of programs in the wilderness and sailing and all kinds of fun stuff. And I said to Marilyn, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't do what I've been doing. And I don't know what it is that I'm going to be doing, but I can't do what we've been doing anymore. And she is just like, oh my God, this is my partner, you know, my business partner. What's happening here?
It's okay.
It's my heart. And I didn't know what to say or what to do, but I'd go to do therapy, and I'd, you know, just, oh, tell me about your week and how are you feeling and blah, blah. I'd do the old habit, and it just felt like I'd swallowed something that was rotten. It just didn't feel right. I couldn't do it. I tried because they were expecting Joe to be the same way he was before he went to Florida. But I couldn't do it, but I didn't have any words for the 3 principles. They weren't called the 3 principles then. It was just the feeling. And so I just would talk a little bit about some insights I was having. I'm starting to see where my stress is coming from. It's not from what I'm thinking about, it's from how I'm thinking about what I'm thinking about. That's a paradigm shift. And they'd look at me and they go, why didn't you tell us that before? It's so simple. God, is that ever helpful? I said, what did I say? And I meant it. I would started talking from mind. And I would say things that I knew, but I didn't even cognitively know what I knew. I was really out on a limb here. And God, everything I carefully constructed in this sandcastle was washed away by Sid. And so I just shared what I was seeing. And they go, wow, that is so profound. I said, really? What did I say? And they tell me, I said that? Because you speak beyond your cognitive level to something deeper. But it just seemed too easy. It can't be that easy. This is hard work working on the psyche. You know, this is years of work, maybe lifelong. It's a good income flow, let me tell you. You got them in therapy, and then you got their kids, and you got their it's a built. You only have to work with a couple of people to start out with, and you got a full-time job. It was amazing. We were just bringing in the bucks. It was good. And all of a sudden, all my clients started getting well, and they quit. This is not a good economic model. What am I going to do? And then, as a therapist, I worked in a clinic with Chris Heath. She and I were in this, and there were like 20 therapists. We shared a common waiting room, and my clients would come out, and they'd be holding hands and smiling and laughing, and all the other therapists, clients would come out, and they'd be tears coming down, and they'd be looking at each other. Ah, I can't believe you said that. And it was just, and they would sit in the waiting room together, and they'd say, well, they'd see my clients coming out and say, well, who is your therapist? Why are you smiling? I want what you're having. Like the commercial. I want what you're having. So they'd lose their clients. This really pissed off the other therapists because they were losing their clients, and they didn't know, what's Joe, what drug is he on? You know, what is he joined the Maharishis or some cult, or there's a lot of rumors about Joe Bailey. But people say, God, you just look so happy. Is he stoned? I think he might be stoned. He's got to be on drugs. This is not, Joe Bailey usually had a black cloud hanging over his head all the time. The latest horrible thing to happen to Joe Bailey. And they just didn't know what to make. So I thought, what am I going to do? I can't. And my partner, Marilyn, who I love dearly, she's like my best friend, and we just had so many great times together, our adventures, and taking the principles. And we worked with Sam Keen, the founder of Psychology Today magazine, and he would be in our courses, and we had all these incredible people. And she was friends with Oprah, and I'm like, what am I doing? And I said to Marilyn, I don't know how we can work together. And she said, I don't know how we can work together either. This is really, I love you and I care about you, but I don't know how this is going to work. So we called Dr. Carl Whitaker, psychiatrist, well-known family therapist, who was our supervisor. Anyone heard of Carl Whitaker? Amazing, unbelievably wise human being. And he listened to me and he says, well, Joe, I'm going to send you a book by Kuhn on paradigm shifts, because you've had a paradigm shift. And you and Marilyn can't work together anymore. You're in different paradigms. We looked at each other and said, 3 months later, Marilyn was offered a teaching position in San Jose, not San Jose, in southern Santa, what's the one where Amy lives? Amy Mills, where does she live? Santa Cruz. She got a teaching position at the University of Santa Cruz, and so that solved the problem. She could move to California. So that's the way the Magical Mystery Tour works. Things get moved into place in this mystical, what looks like magical, but it isn't. It's the universal mind. Everything is connected. That's how ESP works. You just tapped into the same memory board. You know, when the phone rings, you have a feeling who it is, and it is exactly who you were just thinking about. It's because we're all connected. There's nothing mysterious about that. It's just the way it works. We're all... When I was a little boy, I remember laying in I grew up on like a farm. It was a nursery. We grew trees. We lived out, we had a barn and cows and horses and tractors and all that. And my buddy Jimmy Kell and we'd sit there, we loved to sit on this hill. It was beautiful grass, and we'd look out over the hills, and we'd look up at the clouds, and I said, what what if, what if we were like part of a big giant and we were just one of its blood cells? I think I was 10 when I said this. Jimmy kind of looked at me like I was nuts, but what if we're just cells of God? We just think we're separate. And later I wrote a song about that. I'm not singing it. No. But we're like all cells of the same universal energy. So we're all connected. That's how when your mind, your personal mind gets quiet, when you wake up and see that you're creating a thought experience versus an experience, you get the gift of discernment. You kind of up periscope and you can see what you're creating with this power of thought. And if it's from insecurity or fear or separation, you just know to let that cloud pass through. And when you have something that's coming from wisdom and inspiration, you take it to heart more and more and more. And what that does is it decontaminates the mind of your thought system. You still remember everything in your thought system, but you're not driven by it. You're not run by it. You're not controlled by it because you're free, because you have the gift of wisdom. Like right now, I have no idea what the hell I'm saying. Thank you. I was so taken by Hannah's story. I forgot to thank you two for inviting me and the privilege, the honor of opening this conference. Oh shit, I did it again, and I was looking at you. This is a private joke, but all during the coaching conference, I was scolded about using the word conference from Sheila. I felt like it was scolding, but I know it was love. I know it was pure love. And I got self-conscious about it, and I just knew I was going to say the C word. And I'm not going to say it this time. I'm not going to say it. And you know how it works? Your guard's down, and boom, out of it. So here, it had to happen. I didn't plan it, honestly. It was totally innocent. Please forgive me. Where was I?
Conference.
I was at... I was doing the training. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, that's it, yeah. So, ever since I got asked to speak at this event, this bubble machine started happening in me, in my dreams. I would have dreams and I would be here with you. And I'd start getting these hits of inspiration. And then, as we got closer, we've been here for almost 3 weeks already. My wife and I, she left me. But Michael's back in Minnesota. We have a little business to attend to. We had just demolished our home. That's another whole story. So the whole time I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd have all this energy coming through me, and I'd start being here, and it wasn't nervous. I don't get nervous about giving talks anymore since I learned the principles. I thought it was nervous at first because it was all this energy. I'd labeled nervousness, but it was really inspiration. It was preparing me. It was giving me all this information, and it was weird. It was like a near-death experience. Honestly, thanks a lot. But it was like a life review. You know what they say, when people die, their whole life passes before them. That's what it felt like. started reliving all of these experiences that I've had over the years with Sid. Because Sid, when he met me, he said, this is the first week. He says, Joe, you'll be traveling all over the world. Oh, yeah, right. You'll be writing books. Oh, I can't do that. I can't write. And you'll be speaking to audiences everywhere, and you'll be on television, blah, blah, blah. And this guy's really crazy. But all of that's happened. Mavis Karn, some of you know who Mavis Karn is. She just wrote a book called It's Just That Simple. Wonderful little book that she wrote for kids, but of all ages. And I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? It'll come back. So, I have no idea what I was just saying. What was I just saying?
Sid talking about you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So Sid said this would happen. And so Mavis and I, we'd been having a lot of clients who were counselors coming to us. They worked at Hazelden, which is a treatment center in Minnesota that was the first inpatient treatment center in the world. They're all over the country and the planet now. And so we were training a lot of their staff in the women's outpatient program. And they were getting a lot, and they were telling their friends and the other counselors at Hazel, and the word was kind of getting out about the principles. And so we decided we would do a seminar like this, but we didn't have this many people. We had, like maybe 40 people come. And we called it the Principles of Serenity. And so, we're giving this talk, and after the talk, this guy comes up to me and he says, hey Joe, my name's Tom Grady. I have a local publishing firm here, and I really want you to write a book. And I said, I don't do that. I hate writing term papers. I did not like that, and I can't write. I'm not a writer. Oh no, don't worry about that. I'll help you. I'm an editor. I can help you write. And I was really skeptical, and I thought, why? Sid said, this is going to happen. You're going to write books. And I, oh, is this it? Okay, this is it. So I said, okay. Okay, I'm going to be a writer. So what do writers do? They get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? And when their mind is clear, and they sit down, and at their typewriter at that time was a typewriter or hand. There was no computers then. That's how old I am. Pre-computer, Joe Bailey. And so I get up set my alarm at 4 o'clock, because writers get up early. That's when their inspiration flows and when it comes. And so I went down, I sat down with my pad of paper, and I sat there, tried to write, scratch that out, try to write, scratch that out. Finally, about an hour and a half later, I go back in the bed and I said, I'm never going to be able to do this. I can't do this. This is ridiculous to think that I'm going to write a book. I know Sid said I was going to write a book, but there's no way. I just can't do it. And Michael says, well, what were you doing? What were you writing? And I said, well, I was trying to write the introduction. Well, you dummy. She says, how can you write the introduction to a book you haven't even written yet? I said, that's a really good point. No wonder it was so hard. She says, so why don't you just write what you feel inspired to write? Another good idea. I think I tell other people that. So I went back to my little long legal pad, and I wrote 18 pages. And my hand was like cramping. I couldn't stop. It was just pouring out of me. It's pouring out of me. And I came back, and she says, how'd it go? I said, I think I'm a writer. I just wrote. Here, see, look at this. I wrote these words. I don't feel like I wrote them. They just came through me. It was so easy. And then I wrote the Serenity Principle. So Tom was going to publish it, and so I had it mostly done, and I was asked to speak at the Minnesota Conference for Chemical Dependency Counselors. How am I doing on time, by the way? I have no idea.
5 minutes.
I only have 5 minutes? No. Holy S. I haven't even gotten to the punchline yet. Anyway, so Tom, so I'm giving this talk to a lot of resistant, rigid AA people, and a woman from Hazelden walks up to me from their publication department and hands me $5,000 check or $4,000 or whatever it was, a lot of money, and we've decided we want to publish your book, and here's a contract. And I said, what? This is like the Vatican, and I'm Martin Luther, you know? Like everything I'm saying is everything in a different realm, different paradigm than the 12-step model. And they said, no, we see the results. It's unbelievable what's happening to the clients that are learning this. We want to publish this. So I said, okay. So then they put it on the cover of their catalog. It's the book of the year. I go out there, there's a big banner, welcome Joe Bailey, author of the year. And I was like, Sid, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I'm pinching myself. So I better talk to the founder, Dr. Dan Anderson. So I called him and I got an appointment with him, and I sat down with him and I said, I thought I better meet with you because this could be really controversial. He says, it is very controversial. As a matter of fact, we're not publishing your book. 40 of our counselors said they would quit in mass if we published your book. And we can't lose 40 counselors. So it's over. You can keep your advance, don't worry about it. I said, well, what did you think, Dr. Anderson? I loved it. It's 40 years ahead of its time. Maybe later. And now they sell my book. So that's the way my magical journey has gone. It's been, my new book that's bubbling up is My Magic Carpet Ride. And it's an autobiography that I'm going to tell the miracles, the unexpected things that happened in my life on this unbelievable magic carpet. And each of you has a magic carpet in you. And that magic carpet is mind. It's wisdom, and it will guide you in places and opportunities and things that you could never imagine. They were way beyond you. And you can trust it, and you can hear it. As you hear it and you respect it, without any effort, you will be taken into things that you never dreamt possible. So thank you for listening. And I'm just so inspired looking out. And every event with the C word should be like this event. This is the feeling. Sid would love this. This is the way that Sid talks. Everybody would be laughing so hard and crying, and it was just so human. And so thank you so much for listening and for inviting me, and I can't wait to get out there and listen to everybody else. We have an incredible, unbelievable group of speakers for this conference, so I'm honored to... Ah, shit. I give up.